Welcome back. Sadly, today marks the end of an era here at WBAY TV, a 3 decades long era. Our friend and colleague Jeff Alexander, it's his last day here at the station, now best known for his small town stories. Jeff began here at WBAY in 1994, one of the longest tenured at WBAY, but all good things, and in this case, great things, must come to an end. Today is that day. Take a look behind you. Yeah, he only looked slightly different than that when he started
Where'd
here.
you dig that out?
Believe it or not, that was in the system.
Oh, when we had to give our elementary school
stuff.
back to school pictures. Well,
So
we
we thought we'd give you a little surprise to start this off.
I like it.
Some chuckles so we don't have a whole bunch of tears here. We did discuss this a couple of months ago when you kind of scaled back and just went to small town. But refresh everybody on why you're leaving, because this is it. There's not going to be any more small towns. This is it.
This is it. Really a combination of things, Chris. First of all, my mom's had some health issues, and there's that pull to get back home.
Right.
My grandma passed away a year and a half ago. Super blessed to be able to take over her property and her home, highest point on the WBAY Island. I think we had some pictures. You can see. Well, there's the island, and just a tremendous view. And there it is. And I tell people it's like a little slice of heaven. And so there was something about 30 years is kind of a nice number.
Yeah.
My kids all out of the house and kind of on their own, empty nester. It just felt like the time was right to get home. And I'm going to look to do something, for a few more years, what that may be, mowing golf courses or working to the grocery store, the bait shop, or maybe something else. I don't know. I'm going to really, after the first of the year, really kind of look into what that might be.
So I'm curious, because like I said, we talked about this and how you were scaling back a couple of months ago, but we knew that this was coming, right?
Sure.
So you've been sitting on this decision for months. As this day has arrived, has it become easier or harder?
Honestly, I think it's become a little easier because I think as the last few months unfolded and I really thought about it, and you go through some emotions because when you've done something for 3 decades that you sincerely love in a place that you really enjoy, surrounded by people at a workplace that become friends and people in the community that are so open and welcoming you into your homes, it is bittersweet.
Yeah.
But as I've had time to reflect and look back on my career here and think about all the things I've been able to do, as I sit here today, I am, it's the old saying, your cup runneth over, and I am totally at peace.
I want to bring up some of those things because it has really been a remarkable career. I mean, 30 years in this business is a long, long time, right? So you've covered Super Bowls, right? You've done the honor flights, we're well aware of that, the Pearl Harbor trip, the return to Vietnam. You went to England years ago to talk about Packer fans. I think you covered the Pope in Philadelphia. I was here when that happened. And then, of course, the small town stuff. So you reflect back on this, and a lot of times people go, oh my gosh, you're so lucky to be able to go where you go.
Yeah.
How lucky have you been?
Chris, I feel...
I mean, you've created a lot of your own luck. That's not what I'm suggesting. But the opportunities that you've had through this job are unbelievable.
And I think back to when I was in Montana. I was able to go to Russia for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
I flew with the Blue Angels. I jumped out of a plane with a world champion skydiver. That was in a 3-year period. I come here, and I don't know if it was just this passion I had and would approach the news director and say, hey, let's do this. And maybe I was a good salesperson. Some things just worked out. I was lucky. I mean, the Packers were good and went to Super Bowl, so I got to cover them. And I think a lot of people in this business, you cover the, standard run-of-the-mill stories. I've always been just so blessed to do kind of out-of-the-box things.
So let me ask you, because what people are saying today here in the halls and have been saying really since small towns started, like it just fits you like a glove. You are one of the premier storytellers.
Well,
I've worked in this business for a long time in a bunch of different places. I don't know of anyone better as a storyteller. So I think viewers would want to know, is that your DNA? Where do you think that comes from?
I think back to my dad was a teacher, and I actually had him for a couple of years. And one of the things we had to do was he always had us write stories, and he was a great storyteller. And I always loved English class. It was one of my favorite. And I just loved talking to people. I didn't want to go out and cover court cases and all the bad news. I wanted to talk to interesting people. And I think that the biggest thing for me was always to just get people to feel comfortable, to open up to you, and not necessarily interview them. They would say, well, what are we going to talk about? I said, let's just have a conversation. And then I tell the young reporters all the time, yeah, you want to have good writing, you want to have good video, but listen to the sound and pick out the sound bites that are interesting and weave your story around that. And I love it, and I will miss that.
Right. 30 years here, I think you mentioned earlier, 33 years total with your career, right? So what do you think has been the biggest change in the industry in your time that has made either telling those stories easier or harder?
Well, what I think has made telling them harder is just the kind of the consolidation of positions. I mean, I've been blessed. I have always had a photographer. The first few years in Montana, you'd have to shoot on your own. But this station has always given me the opportunity. I think nowadays there's more newscasts, there's digital media, social media. You've got to have stories on the web, and it's more kind of a run and gun, and it's harder. That's been the big change I've seen, to try and, you know, I feel bad for these younger people. It's like, give them a little more time to really do their thing.
Well, and I think it's really important to note that even with all of that, there is a place for good storytelling, and you found it.
Absolutely.
And you crushed it. So you've scaled back over the last couple of months. We know this, it's not been a daily job for you.
Sure.
But how do you think you're going to feel when you wake up tomorrow?
Well, good question. I think I'm going to feel pretty excited. Excited to get home and to really kind of, really begin my new chapter. It's kind of been back and forth the last half year. That said, I love Northeast Wisconsin. It's been home for the last 30 years. I've got a lot of wonderful friends here. And hey, I'm going to be visiting, at least once or twice a year. And I hope to see, obviously, I'll visit the station, but hopefully see folks at Fleet Farm or the grocery store or wherever, cross paths.
All right. Much more on Jeff's final day coming up on Action 2 News at 5 o'clock. I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Chris.
You will be sorely missed.
It's been a pleasure.